Welcome to the Leader of the Opposition press conference for May 4th, 2023. Permit me to introduce the panel from my right. To my right, there is none other than Mr. Elson Lowe, the economist. To his right, the Leader of the Opposition and the People's National Congress Reform, Mr. Aubrey C. Norton, Member of Parliament. And to his right, none other than Mr. Marvin Williams. Welcome. Today's press statement will be read by the Leader of the Opposition.
GCOM, as presently chaired and managed, lacks the competence and integrity to deliver free, fair, and credible elections. On Tuesday, 2nd May, GCOM released the approved list of candidates for all 10 municipalities and 70 NDCs for the 2023 local government election. As a consequence, all of the numerous instances of electoral fraud committed by the PPP have been locked into these lists. Despite the hard evidence we produce of PPP skullduggery, GCOM has decided to bury its head in the sand and to ignore its constitutional responsibility under Article 162(1)(a), which states that the Elections Commission, and I quote, shall issue instructions and take such actions as appear to it necessary or expedient to ensure impartiality, fairness, and compliance with the provision of the Constitution or any act of Parliament, unquote. For GCOM to state that those allegations of forgery and voter impersonation are matters for the police and for elections petition is a gross dereliction of its constitutional responsibility to the people of Guyana. The chairperson, Claudette Singh, does not understand or chooses to so pretend what responsibility means. It means the commission has a duty, an obligation, and a binding undertaking. Delivering fair and impartial elections is not the duty or obligation of neither the Guyana Police Force nor the High Court. The Constitution explicitly places that responsibility fully in the lap of GCOM. The Commission has no room for dodging and ducking its obligation here. Clearly, GCOM is a pawn of the PPP administration and cannot deliver free, fair, and credible elections to the people of Guyana. Further, for GCOM to apply one set of rules to certain constituencies and different rules to other further exposes it to charges of ineptitude or political bias at its very top. The case in question involves constituencies in Woodlands Belay Region 5 and in Wakanam Region number 3. In the first name area, GCOM declared that the fraudulent list of candidates could only be contested by way of a petition after the elections because they had already been signed off by the returning officer. However, in the Wakanam instance, although the document had also been signed off, the RO proceeded to rescind the approval in clear contradiction of the law. As Commissioner Vincent Alexander publicly noted, and I quote, the PPPC appointed commissioners, along with the chairperson, are the ones who perpetrated this travesty of injustice. This is a clear manifestation of the partisan political nature of the PPP-dominated commission. From all this, Guyanese must note the following stark reality, if they haven't already. GCOM, as presently composed, chaired, and mismanaged, does not have the competence, integrity, attitude, foresight, and vision to deliver free, fair, and credible elections in Guyana. Elections that can win the trust and confidence of the Guyanese public and all contesting groups and parties. Fixing the Guyana Elections Commission must begin now. No hope for workers under the PPPC government. The starkest indication of the PPP's government's incompetence and uncaring nature is that despite billions of dollars of current and projected oil revenues, most citizens have seen no improvements in their lives and feel no hope for a better life tomorrow. The numerous demands of workers and their unions on Labor Day 2023 capture the scale of the gloom and pessimism that has gripped the country. Demands were made for a minimum livable income tax release, subsidies for utilities, tax breaks for families with children, transportation allowances, better school meals, and unemployment or job seeker support. The list goes on. We are on record of espousing most of these demands in our national development people-centered strategy. These demands are not about putting icing on the cake. These demands are about getting the cake itself. Workers are demanding a life free from poverty and economic insecurity. They are rejecting the notion that they must forever remain the working poor and are demanding incomes and benefits to guarantee them a decent living standard. The mood on Labor Day was that the patience of workers with this government is running out. By now, all Guyanese realize the super high GDP growth rates and biggest ever national budgets do not translate into a life free from destitution, insufficiencies, and hardship, such as inadequate food and nutrition, high infant mortality rates, and reduced life expectancies. By now, workers and all other Guyanese recognize that what stands between them and a high quality of life is the PPP government. The PPP cannot and will never deliver on the demands of workers and the wider population. Its attitudes toward the poorer classes is disdainful. Its economic development plan and its simplistic focus on infrastructure are oligarchic and kleptocratic, favoring a rich cabal of friends, family, and favorites. The PPP sees the Natural Resource Fund as a slush account for sporadic and politicized one-off cash transfers. Its dependence on Barry Jagdeo as its sole economic czar continues to be a recipe for failure and disasters. Labor Day 2023 has come and gone, with Guyanese workers left to continue their struggle, with no pledges and guarantees from the government and no hope of immediate relief and imminent prosperity. One of the workers' most basic demands, a guaranteed minimum livable income, has been ignored by the PPP government, which has a track record of granting paltry salary increases reluctantly and well below the inflation rate. In contrast, we in the PNCR and the opposition see a minimum livable income, subsidies, cash transfer, and other such public expenditures, not as consumption or handouts as the PPP sees them. We see such expenditures as investing in people. These investments are not only the moral responsibility of a decent government to its citizens, but also stimulants or drivers of socio-economic growth and development. The more people participate as workers, business owners, producers, creators, investors, consumers, and citizens, the more robust the economy and the more just and equitable the society. The political choices, therefore, before the Guyanese people could not be starker. On the one hand, continued poverty, hardship, and inequality with the PPPC. On the other hand, our people-centered vision of prosperity based on raising up all those at the bottom and increasing the number of those in the middle. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will take questions on the press statement. And of course, as customary, by the raise of hand, I'll take the questions. Mr. Adam Harris.
A very good morning, everybody. Commonly, you talk about GCOM and accepting the fraud perpetrated in the preparation of these lists, and you say that that's against the Constitution. Why doesn't the party move to the court immediately to challenge that decision? Secondly, sir, we have commissioners, on GCOM. Have they indicated to the chairperson the clauses in the Constitution that would prohibit GCOM from accepting those fraudulent lists?
Well, first of all, I know our commissioners would have outlined all of the legal elements of it to GCOM. You are aware that GCOM seems not to be interested in anything but the law, but just the political direction of the PPP. We filed yesterday a court action seeking to either postpone or stop the local government elections. As far as I gather from the lawyers, we have a 28 May fixed date fixed for hearing on this matter. So we also have other pending legal action that we will take to deal with this issue. But as it stands, on the question of the manipulation of the boundaries and a number of other issues, we have already filed, and we will continue to file legal action to deal with these issues. What we sought to do first, we anticipated that if we didn't report it to the police, they would have said we had to report it to the police. So we reported it, and even when they said that, it was already reported. So we did that. We informed the Elections Commission. We are continuing to protest their actions, and we will take legal action on all aspects of these irregularities.
Thank you.
May I follow, please?
Go ahead.
Currently, as a leader of APNU and as opposition leader, I don't know which one is more powerful. Have you attempted to contact the GCOM chairman on this issue, bearing in mind that whatever decision GCOM takes would have an impact on the opposition parties?
We have basically dealt with this matter through our commissioners, which is the correct thing to do. We don't see much benefit in engaging the chairman of GCOM. It should be obvious to all, including you, that the Elections Commission chairman has become a pawn of the PPP. Let's look at the Bel Air Woodlands and the Wakanam issue. In Bel Air Woodlands, we provided all the evidence of the dead signing, people who should have had thumbprints signing. We provided all the evidence of one person signing on behalf of many others, all of which are illegal. That was provided, our commissioners provided at the level of GCOM. And GCOM proceeded to accept and approve those with the irregularities. Then came Wakanam, where we put our information in. It was approved by GCOM. A minister went on the island and coerced people to take their name off of the list. Okay? And GCOM allowed it. And then, having approved, they rescinded it. You had to go and get signatures before they approve it again. And so it is evident that GCOM, including Claudette Singh, they are acting on the direction of the People's Progressive Party. GCOM cannot even suggest that it is an independent body in keeping with the law. It is now a poodle of the People's Progressive Party. Therefore, I think at this stage, it is useless speaking with Claudette Singh. We have been speaking with her on many occasions, and sometimes you wonder if she was a judge. She pays no attention to law. All she does is operate at the whims, fancies, and caprices of the government, of the PPP. So I do not see much utility in speaking to her, knowing full well that our commissioners would have brought all of these things to her attention and how she operates.
you. I see the hand of Mr. Jevon Vickery.
There's no question of the statement. I wonder if we can take questions on the statement.
Not as yet. Let's focus on the statement for a bit and then we'll get to any other question.
Okay. I would
Then, if there are no other hands at the moment, I'm still on the thing.
Go ahead.
Earlier you spoke about there being some, but if not you, members of the party spoke of there being a problem with the Region 9 list. And you, well, last you had a press conference and I asked, you said that the matter is with GCOM and the decision is to be made. I'm not aware of that decision, sir. Can you help me?
Well, our commissioners informed us that GCOM dismissed the matter and ruled out our participation in Region 9 LETM. And again, this is a manifestation of how they operate arbitrarily, because there is information in other places where ROs were accommodating to PPP, but it's the reality. But they have ruled it out. So, but we have, like I said, we have filed action to stop the election or basically postpone it. And we will see where that go while we continue to campaign. Because in this process, we want it to be known that we believe we are strong. We know we are strong. If you follow in our campaign, we are on the ground doing our work. And so while we are taking these actions, we're also working and ensuring that we're on course for whatever eventuality.
Thank you. Any other questions on the press statement? Ms. Tamika Garnett?
Well,
Yes. Ms. Garnett?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. Mr. Martin, can we get a clarification on exactly what happened in Region 9 as pertains to Avenue submissions of this list? In what way was the arrow not accommodated?
You are aware that this question was raised in a press conference that you were present and I dealt with it. I don't see the need for repeat it. I outlined every circumstance that led to what happened in the Rupununi. I see no need to repeat it. Because you were in that press conference, my dear.
Yes, I referred to the press conference last week. Because I was there and I don't recall anything being clarified on.
It was done. It was done. The press. It was done in the press conference after nomination day. And Adam asked the question. I answered it. You did a follow up, if I remember clearly.
All right. Any other questions on the press statement? All right. With no other questions being asked on the press statement, I will open the floor for any other questions. And I see the hand of Mr. Jevon Vickery.
Good morning. I know good morning, Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin, last week, the Minister of Labor in an interview with the Standard told about the unreleased.
Mr. Vickery.
Wait a minute.
Mr. Vickery, we're having a really bad feedback from your background. I don't know if you can lessen the noise a bit, so it's kind of difficult to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Much clearer. Thank you.
Awesome. So last week we at the Ghana Standard had spoken with the Minister of Labor with regards to audit, the SLED, the 2019 SLED audit report. He mentioned three members of the opposition, namely Christopher Jones and Mr. Jeremy Figuera, and another member. Mr. Martin, what are your views on this? I know you might not have seen the report, But these are instances of things that would have happened before, that they were mentioned and in some instances charged. What are your views on this?
Where you said they were charged. First of all, as far as I know,
I'm sorry, not charged. They would have been taken to the station rather for these instances.
no, I think one might have been charged. The other name you call might not have been charged. But our position is simple. Any Guyanese citizen has the right to access financial assistance and loans under the SLED program. Once they did not violate any rule that said, well, as members of parliament or something, they couldn't, I see no problem. The SLED program, as I understood it, was to help people to get into business, etc. I don't know that because they are members of the AP and UAFC, then automatically they are precluded. That would sound discriminatory to me. So once everything was done within the confines of the law, then I see no problem whatsoever.
I'll follow up, Mr. Doctor. Mr. Hamilton had said also that there were two programs that were listed under that program. The addresses were at Congress Place. Are you aware that there were programs that were undertaken at Congress Place, as it's suggesting?
Well, no, I don't. But what I can direct you to do is engage former Minister Amna Ali, who had responsibility at the time.
Thank you. Ms. Tamika Garner, your hand up.
If there is no other question,
You can
perhaps
go
I
ahead.
can try to squeeze in one.
Yes, go ahead.
And this one is for Ms. Coretta McDonald. Now, on Labor Day, you spoke about your teachers and their pay. You talked about them needing a series of things. Last year, December, the president had what you call paid salary adjustments to certain categories of workers, and a promise was made to the teachers. I know that nothing has been done to that, but can you say what has your union done to approach the president to honor this promise you made in December?
Thank you. With regards to the teachers, the issue of the salary adjustments is what we call debunching in the teaching service system. This has been an ever-old problem, and we have been addressing it as a combined labor movement, where we approached the government since during the days of Barajagdio's presidency, and we were working through that. However, during the coalition's term of office, we were able to settle in part the debunching issue, where teachers were issued with monies, bringing them to the different salary scales as increments. Those were increments given to them and bringing them to their salary scales. That process is yet to be completed. What we have done since 2020, after the general elections, we resubmitted our salaries proposal. These went to His Excellency, the President. They went to the Minister of Labor, to his PS, to the Chief Labor Officer, as well as the Minister of Education and the PS Education. We would have resubmitted in 2020, resubmitted in 2021, resubmitted in 2022, and in 2023, only to be told in December that teachers' issues are going to be looked at a later date. What we found strange at the GTU, though, is that on the 17th of April, when we had, not the 17th, yes, the 17th of April, when we had our General Council meeting, General Council made a decision with regards to where we are going to go, having not heard anything from the government. And I should say that they did not respond to any of our letters. And so the decision there would have led to a series of industrial actions, which would have all built itself up to having full-blown industrial action. Having heard of that, the government hurriedly called the GTU to a meeting. It was quite disappointing for the GTU officers who attended that meeting, When we thought we were going there to discuss the outstanding issues that have not been honored and to look somewhat at the new proposal, we were there as teachers lecturing to the Minister of Governance, the Minister of Education again, and the Minister of Public Service, outlining to them what are the issues that are still outstanding, because they, apart from the Minister of Education, who had brief knowledge of what was happening, which is surprising, the other two had no idea of what was happening. And so it was just a clear case of them coming there to engage us or to say there's a meeting, so that the actions that would have been planned, those actions are going to be lulled or would be lulled. I want to say to this nation that this government, they have no regards for workers. As a matter of fact, they're anti-working class. And when we hear them talk about care and concern, those are just words because they know how to use those words. But so far, nothing has happened. We are anxiously awaiting the meeting of May 17th to hear what they're going to say to us. Because like I said, we had to lecture to them. They took copious notes. And I guess by now they are discussing what the notes that they would have taken then, they are discussing it in cabinet and elsewhere. So we await the meeting of the 17th to hear what the government has to offer to us with regards to completing those issues and conditions that have not yet been honored by the PPPC government. Leading up to the actions that we would have proposed, we are still carrying out some of those actions. And I want teachers and parents and everyone else to understand that this government's action then is saying to us that we're going to hold them to a meeting and we're going to stall the entire process. Because I'm sure you know, and not everyone else know, there are so many other issues that have been dealt with at the click of a finger. But teachers' issues are now being dragged out for yet another year. In doing this, many, many teachers are going to be disenfranchised because some of them will retire and not being able to access the benefits that they were solely due. Teachers are going to move to other levels within the sector, and they're not going to be able to access those benefits simply because we're going to be told that those monies that were allotted, they're now they've now gone into the into another account. A year would have passed and they have to do so much more to get those monies. Or we are going to be hearing, well, the monies are too much and we can't access those years that have gone by. We are going to start from this point. That's what teachers are going to hear. But again, it is sad that this is the state of affairs once again with the PPP in office.
Thank you.
I just wanted to build off of that quickly. It is important that we continue to remind the Guyanese people that from the moment that our national budgets have included revenues from oil, we've seen continually a decrease in the share of the budget that is spent on education. The government is making a deliberate decision not to invest in education, to underinvest in education. And it is a deliberate decision not to pay teachers what it is that teachers should receive. And so this is an alarming trend. We continue to highlight it. And it shows that the government has no interest in education in Guyana's development.
Thank you. Ms. Tamika Garnett. All right.
I would like to ask a follow-up question on the SLED program. One of the key points of the reports that have been put out on the SLED program is the mismanagement of the funds, not just that the funds were given to politicians, but that they were mismanaged under them. What does Mr. Norton have to say about this?
First of all, I don't know what you're talking about. I've already said to you, you should direct the question to the former minister. I do not want to get involved in speculation. I have not even seen the report. The general points I would have dealt with, but I don't know anything about the mismanagement of the fund. What I know, if it is mismanaged, I would find it strange because it means they would have joined the PPP, because the PPP are the specialists in mismanagement. So I'm not in a position to comment on the mismanagement of the SLEDS program, but I know I exist in a society in which there's complete mismanagement. Only the other day, we gave 800 and something billion dollars to the government, and I think now they're asking for another 30 million or something to that effect, billion, which suggests incompetence and inability to plan and manage. So I do not know that um, mismanagement is a new thing, but I know the PPP has thoroughly mismanaged this country. They have thoroughly mismanaged the economy. And as it relates to the specific program about sleds, I do believe the minister that handled it is in the country. And it will be useful for you to ask that minister about that situation, you know, and that should help you.
Okay, so if you currently don't have understanding of previous issues with accountability of members of your party, how do you feel that this could affect persons' perception of your ability to hold the members of your party accountable going forward?
First of all, um, your language, I'm not so sure how you arrived at it, that I don't have an understanding of accountability. From the time I became leader of the party, one of the things we ensure is accountability. Um, I've argued throughout my life that I avoid corruption so that I can always deal with accountability. I don't know what you're talking about holding our members accountable for. I did say to you that in the case of SLED, these members have a right as Guyanese citizens to access loans, grants, whatever. If you were suggesting that by virtue of them being members of parliament at the time, that they don't have a right, then it's another issue. Also, the matters, at least one of the matters is before the court since 2020 to now, and there seem to be no resolution. The government, as far as I know, has not put in place a case to establish any of the allegations that have been made. And so, as it relates to the membership of the party, our membership is educated to know that they have to be accountable, that they have to be transparent, and they are aware that they're dealing with a PPP government that isn't accountable, isn't transparent. And since we are offering an alternative, which is a government with integrity, that is accountable, etc., I believe that I can hold people accountable. As leader of the party, I have repeated many times, I cannot be successfully accused of corruption. I was never involved in corruption. In my operation, we are as transparent as possible. And so I see no problem in terms of us moving forward and holding people accountable. If there is anybody in the party that would have transgressed the law, then as a party, we don't defend people who violate the law, though we believe a man must be proven innocent, a man must be assumed innocent until proven guilty. And then it is very difficult for me to comment. This is a regime that has trumped up charges against 12 people claiming that they are terrorists. We are waiting that case. This is a regime that trumped up charges against former Minister Winston Jordan. We are waiting on the evidence. This is a regime that has recently trumped up charges on people about cybercrime, and then they can't produce no case. This is a regime that trumped up charges about the 2020 elections. 3 years on to now, they cannot provide the evidence. What we are seeing here is just a clear case of political harassment, and the government continues to harass people, can produce no case, but continue to make the kind of statements that are allegedly made by Joseph Hamilton. And some of the people that are making the statements, if you go through the history of the dealings they had with NIS, etc., you might very well find that the government had to protect them from a lot of things in a previous period. So many of them don't even have the moral right to speak about accountability.
Thank you.
In fact, Joseph Hamilton can't be taken at his word. This is a gentleman who, during the campaign, publicly accused me, Mervyn Williams, of giving to myself thousands of acres of land while we were in government. I don't know how that could be possible. I don't know how remotely that could be possible. But here's Joseph Hamilton and his buddy Nigel Dharamlal sitting side by side during the campaign, accusing me of giving myself thousands of acres of land. I mean, how could you believe these chaps when they tell you anything? And I agree. There is some information in the NIS that might be very, very useful in trying to analyze sincerity and integrity in some of these chaps.
Thank you. I have a question from Ms. Renetta Burnett. I think this is Nightly News. Go ahead.
My question is directed to Ms. McDonald. Our newscast saw Mr. Light at the Labor March on Monday, and we asked about the current position with the union and the government in regards to the proposals that were made for teachers or on behalf of teachers. Mr. Light said that the last meeting they had with the government, which they met as a union for the first time, was promising, and he is going to give them time to see what they will bring to the table. So my question to you, Ms. Coretta, are you also with or standing in that position? Are you giving them time? Are you in agreement with what he said?
Well, you see, I can't speak for Mr. Light, but I can speak for the teachers of this country. Our teachers would have given enough time. 3 years is enough time. And if you want to take that closer, 365 days multiplied by 3 would give you plenty days. If you take that down to minutes, you know how much you're going to get. And so that would have been enough time for the government to be able to assess, analyze, and decide on how they're going to act. As a matter of fact, if we look at what this government would have done for the police, the nurses, the Ghana Defense, those in the Ghana Defense Force, or let's say the armed forces, and continuously have been doing for the sugar workers. They didn't have to wait for time. As soon as the sugar workers make noise, they were ready to come to their assistance. And what is happening here is not anything strange for the PPP, you know. When we signed that agreement in 2006, it was signed when the PPP government were in office. All that has happened with our proposals that we've been submitting is because of inflation, we have increased the numbers, but the pattern is just the same. And if the PPP have been a continuous government in terms of continuing in the process of or the management of government, then I don't know why this is rocket science for them. So giving them more time is zero for me. Giving them more time when you meet teachers everywhere across this country is zero for the teachers. But I figure Mr. Light has his own reason for saying that he wants to give them time. And maybe they would have promised him some more time in some other instance too. So that is why he's saying that he's going to give them more time. But I can tell you, teachers have died. They have not received their benefits. Teachers have retired and they have not received their benefits. So when you talk about giving people more time, are you saying that you want many more of our teachers to retire? As we speak, there are 4 teachers who will retire at the end of this month. Do we ask for time or extension for them to remain on the job? And you know what they would have said to teachers just last year? If your name did not appear on the December pay sheet, then you could not get the increases for last year. So when we talk about giving them more time, are we saying that we are in agreement with our teachers being disenfranchised? As a union leader, as an elected member, I wouldn't give any more time. And that's out of the question.
Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Mark Benchcott.
Thank you. And it's so refreshing to be part of a press conference where reporters are not afraid to ask bold questions. I just wish that it can be the same at other press conferences. Having said that, Mr. Norton, the Commission of Inquiry for the 2020 elections are out. I'm not sure if you have issued a statement on that. I'd like to get your position on the outcome of that according to the PPP. And also the International Republican Institute members are in the country at this time, where scores of persons have had their names placed on the PPP's list. And those are examples of massive irregularities. The International Institute for Republican Institute have met with members of the regime, they have met with members of the AFC. Have they met with you guys in the APNU PNC? And if so, what will be some of the things to be discussed with them?
What is the first question? You asked one before I arrived.
COI 2020.
Huh?
COI.
What's your thought?
Oh, okay, good. Let me start with the COI. From the inception, we felt it was a PPP charade. When we look at the process to appoint the judges, etc., and imagine you put in Carl Singh, who clearly is not independent, then you brought this thing into disrepute before it started. Secondly, you were the people who were insisting that this thing should be done by elections petition. And out of the blues, you come into COI. But having said that, one of the things I found interesting is that the COI concluded that GCOM as presently constituted cannot deliver credible elections, and that the government should focus on. Because unless the government wants a situation where at the end of every election, the results aren't accepted, then they should heed the words of the COI and proceed to ensure that we have elections commission that is independent and can deliver elections. We've had commissions under Steve Surajbali who did not cast a vote willy-nilly with the PPP and operated in a fairly independent way. We have had the same with Cho Singh and others. What we have now is the destruction of the Elections Commission by a chairperson who is partisan, who is unapologetic for being a PPP lackey, and cannot deliver free and fair elections. As it relates to IRI, we have always been engaged with IRI. We've had representatives working with them. We have submitted many of our positions on election and electoral reform. And with this group that was here recently, yes, we have had people who met with them.
If I have another question as it pertains to...
I think Marvin, who is as part of the IRI engagement, wants to make a point.
Yeah,
Sure, sir.
I wanted to first of all, though, make a point on this question of the COI. It's interesting that a number of political parties participated in and had an interest in the outcome of the 2020 elections, but the PPP single-handedly decided that they were going to craft the terms of reference. And similarly, the PPP proceeded to, independently of any other contesting political party, interested political party, representing the people of this country, appointed those commissioners. So this obviously was a part of a game plan to arrive at a predetermined outcome. And so the outcome is favorable to the People's Progressive Party. It's also interesting to note that the Commission of Inquiry was in fact commissioned on parallel tracks to the matters of the election petitions before the court. So it was always believed that the intention of the COI was to create distractions and to prejudice perhaps the outcome of those matters before the court. The other issue here is the timing of the release of that report. Mr. Jagdeo and company were faced with some very, very serious allegations substantiated by documentary evidence of forgery, fraud in the local government election 2023. And their only hope was to release something that they can play on to attempt to create a distraction in the minds of the Guyanese citizens. So, in a nutshell, the CUI was a kangaroo court, and the outcome was determined well before the establishment of the commission. And if you remember Mr. Ali saying, before dark, he would have named these commissioners. Generally, that speaks to the whole concept behind the commission. It was something dark. But yes, on the question of the IRI engagement, as recent as last evening, we engaged the IRI and had very, very fruitful discussion. A number of issues were discussed with the IRI representatives, including governance, a clean voters list, biometrics at the place of voting, being necessary elements for free, fair, and credible elections in which the citizens can have some amount of comfort with the outcome. It is about the party with the best policies receiving the greater number of votes forming the government, as opposed to dead people electing a government and imposing it upon the living. Um, the question of a deteriorating governance in the National Assembly also featured among other issues being discussed last evening. And like I said, they were very fruitful and frank discussions.
I think,
Thank you so much.
but I think also at an earlier point, our representatives did inform them that the parliamentary committees weren't functioning. And they were also informed at one point about them sabotaging of the Public Accounts Committee so that there is no scrutiny for the account. So at this stage, we are in a place where the parliamentary committees are not functioning, the Public Accounts Committee is not functioning, and therefore democracy is under threat at the parliamentary level.
Those issues were again discussed because there were new representatives present on the IRI side, and in fact, in addition to all of those issues, special emphasis was in fact paid to the non-functioning of the Natural Resources Committee of the National Assembly at this stage when the all-important oil and gas sector is presenting so much difficulties for the people of this country. The business of the people in that regard cannot be actively pursued by that sectoral committee. The one other big issue I believe that was discussed was the violation of indigenous people's rights.
Mr. Benchcop has another question.
Yes, thank you so much. I have this question directed to Mr. Elson Lowe concerning the whereabouts of the missing, so to speak, $240 million US coming out of that audit. And the other question to the leader of the opposition concerning the controversy at the Ministry of Home Affairs concerning the permanent secretary. That matter seemed to be, PDP wants to push that underneath the rug. Your take on that, please. And secondly, and my final question as I heed to Dennis Sherrill, the position with the AP and UPNC as it pertains to local government elections, one breath you guys are saying that there is a petition, I believe, or is your intention to stop the elections as a result of the glaring irregularities, and then in another breath going ahead to urge your supporters to go out and be prepared to participate. Do you think that can kind of like build the support base of the coalition with regards to confusing the minds of your support base, sir?
If you want me to begin, first of all, I don't think there's any confusion with our support base. We meet our support base in every region and we give them clear guidance. Very early, we set our support base. We are not going to leave the NDCs and municipalities open for the PPP to take it over. In every meeting I've had with our membership, and I continue to do that, meeting with our membership, we point out to them clearly that we have to ensure that there is no vacuum created for the PPP to occupy. We also point out to them that we believe the voters list is flawed, bloated, and we'll continue to fight for that and for biometrics. We've also said to them that we will take legal action. But as we do all of these, we must continue to work, campaign, mobilize, organize for election. I am of the view that the PPP will bring regional and general elections early. And I see a lot of what it's doing here as putting the machinery in place and preparing for that election. I do not believe that our membership is confused. Our membership is clear. If you look at Facebook, you will see them out in the fields working because they have clarity on where we are heading. So I don't believe there is any scope for confusion. As it relates to May Tucson, Junior Thomas, we continue to recognize that the PPP is a cabal that is always in conflict with the law, and that what is happening here is normal for PPP operatives. Many of them are in conflict with the law. Historically, they have been in conflict with the law. We will continue to press our demand that she should be sent on leave. We know that an investigation is ongoing. We will monitor it. We believe from the inception, she did not qualify to be a PS, but in the nature of the PPP, they put her there. We worry that she operates in a key ministry, and to the extent that she is compromised, then the ministry will be compromised and the law will be compromised. The Ghana police force continues to be compromised. And so this is a dangerous situation that we will continue to monitor and demand that the PS be sent on leave. However, we are aware that when birds of a feather flock together, if they lose one, there's likely that they will have to lose all. And since they are not prepared to investigate Barra Jackdale for alleged bribery and fraud, then they can't lose her because information might come out. So the PPP is in a real dilemma. It started with a president that has 19 fraud charges. Okay, they will be able to use the DPP to get rid of it. Then you see a situation where you had a finance minister that had his own charges, and to ensure that he's insulated, rather than creating a minister of finance, you create what you call a minister with responsibility for finance in the office of the president. The purpose of that is to insulate him from whatever illegalities may occur, because in that situation, the president is the finance minister according to the law, and therefore he has immunity. So it's a whole web that they have tangled themselves in. Illegality stands as the basis of this web. And one the key actor here, Barra Jackdale, is under. Everyone is suspicious of him. The evidence has unfolded. The police cannot take action. And since May Tucson now joins it, she's in good company. It will be very difficult for them to lose her without opening the Pandora's box.
There seems to be some consistency in consecutive PPP governments. You may recall that Henry Green, Commissioner of Police as he was then, had his US visa revoked. And you will recall that Ronald Gadraj, former Minister of Home Affairs, suffered the same fate. Now, the United States administration is not going to revoke visas of top government and security officials without just and sufficient cause. And here it is now, you have a permanent secretary, the CEO of the Ministry of Home Affairs, which is responsible for a number of areas, including law enforcement and processing applications for such things as work permits for persons in Guyana, as well as extradition applications by friendly countries who may have interest in persons residing in Guyana. So there seems to be some kind of consistency in that ministry in terms of their operations attracting the attention of the United States authorities.
It is also important to know that the president called it a normal roughing up. I mean, when it arrived at the point where the president could say it's a normal roughing up, any citizen going through the United States who is not linked to any illegalities don't get rough up. So it's not normal, Mr. President. It might be normal in the PPP for there to be people who are in conflict with the law. But it cannot be considered a normal roughing up when a country that has its strategic interests intervenes at that level to seize a passport, to revoke a visa, and then you treat it as a normal roughing up. It might be normal to the PPP leadership, but it is not normal for ordinary Guyanese traveling, and therefore it is unfortunate that you will describe it as a normal roughing up.
Well, that
But
raises
it might be normal for Mr. President, having regard to the fact that he was put on notice that he's not welcome in Canada.
At one stage, yes.
At one stage, and we don't know if the interest that the Canadian authorities had in him continue to exist, and whether it is, it's kind of actively under consideration. So it may be normal for him as well.
We must recognize as well that this brings Guyana into disrepute, and the idea of us normalizing that senior government officials will be searched, handcuffed, their possessions seized. If that is going to be normalized, and what is the image that Guyanese are going to see, and what is the image that the international community is going to have regarding the Guyana government? Now, this is, of course, many of these issues are linked, you may recall, Mark, because the COI was only announced after the revelations of Sugate. And so that is also one of the issues that is linked here, because, of course, we have not seen investigations into those, proper investigations into those allegations. And we remind the Guyanese people that Sue said that he paid a larger bribe for an oil company. That is something that has not been properly dealt with. Now, you asked me about the US $214 million that was highlighted in the first audit of the offshore expenses. And of course, we've been speaking at length about this issue because auditing accurately and auditing on time these expenses is vital to ensure that Guyanese are getting the right value out of our oil and gas industry. That is absolutely vital. And we've seen the government hide the audit, the first audit, the audit that was commissioned by the coalition. The government hide the results of that audit for 2 years. We have said, first of all, that that it should be a criminal offense not to audit Exxon, but also that it should be a criminal offense to hide the results of an audit. Now we've seen them hide $240 million US from the Guyanese public. The government recently said that it was giving the contractor 2 months to respond to the second audit. But we've had 2 years for the first audit, and why is it that we can't see the results of this audit published for the public to scrutinize it? It is extremely troubling that the government has taken this attitude. 214 million US is a huge amount of money. We've seen now with the second audit, if we have a similar problem, that it's going to be in excess of nearly $1 billion US that will be in question. And so the government needs to say whether it agrees that it should be a criminal offense, first of all, not to audit, and second of all, to hide the results of an audit. This is an issue which, if extended over the life of our oil and gas industry, will could result in tens of billions of dollars of losses. This is totally unacceptable by the government, and they need to be straightforward with the Guyanese people on this topic.
Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Dennis Shabra.
Mrs. McDonald, can you give us an idea of what exactly are the demands by teachers for it as far as the fee salaries are concerned? You have an idea of percentage in mind that you have been putting on the table?
The demands of the teachers or the teachers union for their members since 2020, it stands at, I wouldn't give you the exact percentage, but it's double figures. That's one. Two, the issue of the housing project, which started under Barrack Jagdeo when he was president, never got off its footing. We started activating that under the APNU AFC government, where a special unit was actually put in place to deal with that housing project. Now that the PPP are back, they've disbanded that committee. So that is also outstanding. The issue of house lots, it's still outstanding after 2020 under the PPP government. That is still outstanding. The issue of additional qualification, additional allowances for teachers who would have received additional qualifications. That is also outstanding. The issue of risk allowances, the issue of teachers who are promoted to hinterland schools, that they should be given proper housing, proper security. All of those are issues that are still outstanding in the new proposals that those are in the new proposals, and they are still outstanding issues that we've not yet dealt with by the PPP government. And if you would want to go to the extent to say, well, these were left by the coalition, I would want to say to you that when the coalition came into office, they inherited a whole lot that was not honored by the PPP. And so as government of the day, we don't talk about PPP and PNC and APNU and AFC. We talk about the government of the day. So as government of the day, these are outstanding issues that are yet to be honored, and we still have the new proposal that is supposed to be looked at.
Thank you.
You said double digits. Is it more than 10% we're looking at?
I'll just leave it there as double digits. When the announcement is made, you'll have that, that information will be posted to you. When the agreement, as a matter of fact, is signed.
Thank you. I see at the hand of Ms. Garnett. All right, maybe a mistake. All right, at this time, as we come down to the close, I'll just ask once more if there are any other questions.
Yeah, if I can quickly squeeze in, it seems as though Guyana will have a new U.S. ambassador in that country pretty soon. Mr. Norton, any advice or what would be your expectations of that new ambassador to Guyana?
Ambassadors pursue the interests of their country. That is their primary purpose. Our task is to pursue our interests. Where there are confluences of interest, we utilize it to advance the cause of the opposition in Guyana. And where there are variances, we have to utilize the diplomatic skills available to us to iron those out and move forward. For us, we are going to engage the United States on this question of governance, corruption, etc. in Guyana. And so all I anticipate is that we will engage the new United States ambassador. We will raise our concern. We will promote the interests of Guyana as is necessary. Things like the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy is something that we have to continuously pay attention to. But in the final analysis, ambassadors represent the interests of their country, and it is our task to represent our interests and ensure we can work together to get the best for Guyana.
I know, finally, sorry, Adam, since the list is out in terms of contesting parties in the local government elections, I know a couple of weeks back I asked what percentage or how much of the 610 constituencies the APNU AFC is contesting. We were told that it is 279 out of 610. The source of that information was not a legitimate source. Are you able to tell us, out of the 610 constituencies, how many of those are you guys contesting, sir?
Let me tell you what Barajak is trying to do. He's trying to get us to say which set of groups that are participating are close to us. We have always had a policy beginning in 1994, the first local government election, where we contest as a political party, and in areas where community groups ask us to contest as community groups, we aid them and we work with them. What I'm not going to do is to say which are the community groups and identify them so that Barajagdeo can go out there and call them APNU front and all kinds of nonsense and cause people to not deal with them in the way they should be dealt with. We have always had a policy which says over the years we hope to depoliticize local government, And we have always created the opportunity for independent groups to operate. In cases where they ask us not to run in the area, they will run. We have done that.
Please, my question has to do with a recent ruling by Justice Damon Young, I think it was, on the issue involving the Chancellor and the Chief Justice. I don't recall the President ever inviting you for a meeting from a leader. Do you expect such an invitation at this time, based on the court ruling, to discuss the issue of the Chancellor and the Chief Justice?
Well, you are aware that I put in letter to the President that I am giving my consent for the appointment of Justice Cummins as Chancellor and Justice Roxanne George Wilshire as Chief Justice. I don't want to anticipate or not anticipate what the President will do. In one of the letters, the President did say that it is his prerogative to decide when. The judge suggested that it be done with alacrity. So I will watch to see if he will honor the judge's orders or they will continue to be in violation of the rule of law.
All right, thank you so much.
Just want to make one last note if there's no questions.
All right.
Yes, one other issue that we want to ensure is addressed is we've seen recently a judgment indicating that the requirements of the permits regarding Guyana's offshore oil and gas insurance, that the government is required to take certain actions. And we've seen the government say that they're going to appeal this judgment. Now, really what we want to help Guyanese to understand here is that the government's attitude regarding insurance and oil and gas offshore activities is totally unacceptable and frankly unpatriotic. Even where the country has existing legitimate rights to receive insurance coverage, parent company guarantees, insurance coverage that should put Guyana in a position where we can be comfortable that if there is an oil spill, the country will be fully taken care of. The government refuses to enforce these provisions, and it is frankly sad that it's come to a court order and court action to get the government to enforce the existing provisions. This is an attitude that we've seen in many issues, whether it comes to the audit of government of offshore expenses. It's an attitude that we've seen across the board where the government is unwilling to enforce the legitimate rights of Guyanese when it comes to our offshore oil and gas industry. We believe that the government should not appeal this decision, but should ensure that the rights of Guyanese are properly exercised and that we see full insurance coverage. The government should also not be looking to dilute these rights by providing agreeing to more limited coverage, but rather we should recognize that there are risks that are associated with oil and gas production. If there is a spill, that could be tens of billions of US, and so we need to ensure that we have adequate coverage. In fact, if we have a major spill in Guyana, we could easily clear out our entire natural resources fund trying to deal with the expenses that are associated with cleaning up a major oil and gas spill, oil spill. And so we need to see the government change its attitude. It is disappointing that it has taken this stance, and the government really should just look to do what it is that its responsibility is, which is to take care of Guyana's patrimony, rather than engaging in really lawsuits that are not called for.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Before we close, I just wanted to highlight these facts that would have occurred following up to May Day and even after May Day. You know, we hear the talks about this one Guyana and this one Guyana and this one Guyana, which we all know is a farce. But I want to say that the president speaks about one Guyana, but yet he allowed 2 May Day marches, 2 May Day rallies. And you know what was most disturbing is that the president attended the May Day rally at the national park, which is okay. But even after he was finished there, he did not see it fit to come to the Critchlow Labor College to greet workers from 9 trade unions who were assembled at the Critchlow Labor College. We hear the talks again about one Guyana and one Guyana and one Guyana, but yet the national park, approval for the national park was disallowed when the General Secretary of the Guyana Trades Union Congress, Comrade Lincoln Lewis, wrote asking for permission. And that would have been done 3 months or so ago. On the Wednesday before Labor Day, on Monday, or maybe it's the Friday before Labor Day, we were told that permission was not granted to use the national park. And so these are the people who talk about one Guyana. And I want the personnel who are representing the media houses to understand and to carry this message that we hear this talk about one Guyana, but we don't have a one Guyana. We have 2 and 3 and 4 Guyanas. And the one Guyana that the government speaks about is the Guyana that deals with the elites there and not the masses. And so many of our workers continue to suffer at the hands of this very government who talk about one Guyana. As a matter of fact, if we look at the way in which the school children are being treated in different areas in this country, we would understand that there isn't any one Guyana.
All right, thank you so much. And with that being said, I want to thank you for joining today's press conference, and we do hope you have a wonderful afternoon.